Welcome to Trustee Talk. I'm Dick Murgatroyd, and our guest today is Anderson Township Trustee and First Vice President for the Anderson Township Trustees, Josh Gerth. Josh, been a while.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
How you doing?
I'm pretty good. How about you?
Not bad.
You're surviving.
Barely, yes.
Yeah.
It's good. No, it's all good. It's all good. Well, and I know Andrew was just in here, and he likes the limelight a little more than I do, so we like to give him as much airtime as possible.
Yeah, you're kind of under the radar guy,
yeah.
Right? He's showbiz.
Yeah, he's all showbiz.
He's all showbiz.
Yeah.
We're glad you're here.
Thank
you. I know one thing I want to talk about a little bit is just sort of an update on the Beach Acres.
Yeah.
That's been a topic of discussion all year long so far. So where are we at this point?
I think it is a topic of discussion. We probably could spend hours on this, but I'll try and give you a brief recap of where we are. So back in February, I had talked to a developer and went to the school district and the park district both and said, hey, there's this idea. The idea that Beach Acres being for sale, could we move the Anderson High School to that site? Could we keep the park district's recreational complex that they use on that site, and then turn the current Anderson High School site into a big mixed-use development? Apartments, a hotel, maybe senior living, a little bit of office space. So that was the idea. And when we went and when I talked to both the school and the park, the response was, yeah, it sounds interesting. Well, when you're dealing with 3 different public entities and 13 people on the boards of those entities, conversations and ideas and direction and outcomes and all that, people have different opinions. And so what has happened over the last 9 months is a lot of discussion about how this was going to work between the 3 entities. So the negative is that it's taken a long time to get everybody in a position that we want to try and figure out something at Beach Acres that's beneficial to those 3 entities and most importantly the people of Anderson Township. But the good thing is that we are doing that. We are actually having that conversation, whereas we've never really had that before. Beach Acres presents a phenomenal opportunity for Anderson Township. It is 36 acres. It includes the Park District's recreational complex that they use. That is not owned by the park, it's owned by Beach Acres, but that 36 acres does include that building, which is about a 15,000 square foot building, used all the time by the Park District. But that is a tremendous amount of land in a wonderful location along the heaviest traveled road, probably in the county, to not consider what the highest and best use of that property is. I mean, that's what it boils down to. And so the Park District obviously has been next to that and using that property for many years. I was on the park board for 4 years. We had a great relationship and still do with Beach Acres and have always said, it'd be nice to have that land. The school district just passed a levy back in November. That was to renovate all the schools except for Wilson. They're going to build new. So that levy passed, was great because it's an economic infusion that needed to happen in those schools for a long time. But it's kind of like the adage, well, can you take what you have and make it better? And that was the premise of, well, could we move the school without spending any additional taxpayer money and redevelop the site that the school is on and get some of the amenities that we've always talked about wanting in Anderson Township, that being a hotel, a little more office, luxury apartments, and all the stuff that would be on that site. But it's a balancing act between, well, what's in it for us? Does the school get what they need? Does the park get what they need? How do we help facilitate? And that's really what the township has been trying to do, is help facilitate all this. Well, beginning of October, we finally had a meeting with the 3 entities that basically said, all right, we all have certain wish lists, but what do we need? What do we need to accomplish? And we came together in a meeting. It was actually a public meeting. And it wasn't a scripted meeting, so I'm sure some people that went to that meeting were kind of like, well, this seems very unorganized. Well, it is. I mean, we all have differences of opinions, but the underlining goal here is that Beach Acres property should be the highest and best use to benefit our community. So during that meeting, Russ Jackson, our president of the board, came up with a great idea that said, hey, what if we, the township, use our incredible credit rating that we have and buy it, so it doesn't have to go on, the taxpayers don't have to buy it. What if we buy it and hold on to it for a little bit till we figure all this out? And basically, for lack of a better term, buy us some time to figure this out. Because, like I just mentioned, it took us 9 months just for everyone to get kind of rowing in the same direction. So it's probably going to take another 9 months or a year to figure out what to do with that property. Yeah. And that's where we are right now. So we have a developer who is interested in building a high school and redeveloping the current high school site. But we have a lot of questions that go into whether or not this will work. Whether, logistically it will work, physically will it work, financially, of course, being the most important, will it work? What's going to go on the sites, both sites? What is the park district? How do they fit? How do we get the rec center? Do we either keep the one that's there? Can we expand it? All of these questions are going to have to be answered. And again, the bottom line is sitting here today, we are working towards that goal, and we now have the time to do that because Beach Acres has said, okay, we will allow the township to buy it. So they were under contract with the park district. Park district said, okay, we'll assign the contract to the township. We buy it, we hold on to it for a little bit, with the intent that we will get paid back, that we will either sell it to the school, and if this thing doesn't work out, some people have asked, well, then what? Well, I don't know exactly, but there's a lot of interest from, things like the YMCA, who would love to build a new complex out here. Maybe we expand the rec center, bigger at that point if we have more room. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of interest in Anderson Township from other developers, and can we share and do something different other than the school on that site? All of these things will be explored over the next few months as we work through this.
Well, but I think that probably makes more sense rather than jumping into something and then and having a backfire or not really play out the way it should.
Well, one of the concerns we had was if the park district's levy didn't pass, then what? Because Beach Acres didn't give us any indication of what they were going to do if it didn't pass. And so it's their land and they have the right to do whatever they want with it. They've told us that they're moving. And so what prevents them from selling it to some developer or someone where we don't have really a say in it? And that was one of the concerns. The other concern is the park district wanted to buy the land. So they were going to go out with a levy, which was about $12 million or $12.5 million. Well, $7 million of that was going to be used to buy the land. Mm-hmm. Well, that's a lot of money out of $12 million for a park district to buy when there's no real plan of what to do with it after that. And we have phenomenal parks in Anderson. We have over 500 acres of parks from the Anderson Park District. We have 700 acres of Hamilton County parks, and we have like 1,100 acres of green space. We have an incredible amount of green space and parks in the township compared to the number of residents we have. We are far and above the national average on that.
Yeah,
so I think what people were concerned about is, well, do we need to buy more land and just sit on it when, timing being what it is and the interest we have in this community, would it be better suited to have the park district retain the rec center and the land around it, and do something else with the majority of that land to benefit the township and all the residents? And that's what we are going to be looking at.
Well, and as you said, it's a prime location for the township, as far as a central location for activity, and it's a great place for the parks. And not many places have that kind of property.
Sure, it is
sitting right there in their lap. So
it is, and it is a great piece of property. And the majority of the park board agreed to do this, and it was a tough decision for them because, like I said, they've been neighbors using that land for a long time, and I think in the back of their mind they thought this is going to be all of it is going to be ours someday. So I understand the angst and the a little bit of sadness or the
Yeah.
fact that maybe it wasn't, or is not going to be a park.
Yeah.
But if we can do something, not only have the park that's there, and keep in mind Beach Acres Park, the actual Beach Acres Park, nothing gets touched there. That remains in full intact and fully intact and operational. But is there something else we could do that not only benefits the park, but benefits the schools and, once again, benefits the residents of this community? And that's what I think. I'm excited about the idea that we all 13 of us, well, I should say 12 of us, one person's not, but the majority of us have all agreed to give it the proper time to explore it.
Well, and that makes sense. I mean, I guess, is the school needing to enlarge its facilities? Is that part of the?
I think the school, yes and no. So right now they're projected to be pretty stable in terms of enrollment.
So they're okay.
And I think Anderson High School is about 1,200 students. The school that's being proposed at Beach Acres has the capacity for 1,400 students. But so there is some growth in there. But the idea that you could get a brand new school, and keep in mind Anderson High School is one of, if not the oldest school that we have in our system. And it shows its age. I mean, it's a great school, it's in a great location and all that, but the idea that we could get a brand new school at no cost, I mean, you kind of say, well, how do you not continue to look at that?
Well, yeah.
I mean, to the point that it doesn't make sense, then I think we continue to look at it.
Yeah, well, I think, well, and you're going to have some growth. I know Anderson, I mean, what do you project as far as growth in population in Anderson Township? I mean, how much?
I don't know the exact percentage, but it will be it'll be an increase, but slight increase. But we have activity out here that will likely help with that increase, because what we don't have, we have single family homes. We're 95% single family or whatever it is, owner occupant homes. What we don't have is the kind of product like luxury apartment, empty nester housing, patio homes. We don't have that product. So even people who want to stay here can't stay, or people that want to think about moving out here but would rather rent than own. I mean, there's a couple of options, but nothing nearly to the extent that what you're seeing today being built in other communities. Yeah. Our product is 25, 30 years old. Yeah. Well, that's changing. We just approved a deal, a Community Reinvestment Act for a developer to build on the old movie theater site, which could bring somewhere around 150 luxury apartments. We've got other developers interested in doing the same thing. So, I mean, that will change the dynamic. And not all those people will have children, but to the extent that some of them do, yes, that would certainly impact Forest Hill schools.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and you all have done a really amazing job as far as green space and parks are concerned in Anderson Township. Plus, the programming that you do in conjunction with that is really.
Our park district is phenomenal.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they're an active park. So, I mean, with the exception of Johnson Hills, which is a very passive, kind of raw land type park, all of our parks are very active. Sports, baseball fields, soccer fields, the Recplex. They do a ton of activities. Anderson Days is held at Beach Acres. They have art shows. I mean, it's a very active park system. Yeah. So it takes a lot to run those things.
Well, it does, but I think that's certainly a draw for the community.
Absolutely.
And I think it keeps people, I mean, that tends to be an important element to folks when they're looking at communities, and it's part of the quality of life that you want to continue to promote and,
Absolutely.
and to offer for them. So you have the space, and to protect that space and keep that space is really important, I think, to the community.
Absolutely. I mean, you see what's going on at the city. I mean, they've built more parks in the last 2 years, and now they've got a levy talking about their parks. I mean, parks are an important amenity for a township. I mean, for any community, but for our township, it is definitely an amenity that people like.
Well, and you've got a pretty young community, really, with a lot of young people, young children, and that are more inclined and to enjoy the outdoors and outdoor activities. So it works out pretty good. So the levy did not go on the ballot.
It actually, well,
intended to?
It will be physically printed on the ballot, but it's been withdrawn.
Okay.
So the Park District didn't want to create any confusion as to what exactly was going to be used if it passed. What are we going to do with it? Because there was a lot of questions of what, so they decided, let's pull it off, and again, let's work with the township and the school district to figure out what is best for that property.
Is there a timeline on this now? Are you anticipating that within this year you will hopefully, or between now and next cycle, I guess, that you will have come up with a kind of a plan that you can proceed with?
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to for a couple of reasons. One, because we're committed to it, and none of us want to just sit by now and say, okay, well, we've stopped, working on this, so let's go off and do other things.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we're all committed. We're all in on this thing. The other really, and this goes back to the finances, is the school district. I mean, because they have a plan to remodel Anderson High School, and at some point, if the finances and the money and the design and all the things that we have questions about with this potential new development don't pan out, the school district has to release their bids and contractors and all the things that they've got teed up on Anderson High School. And you don't want to delay that inevitably. They're going to have to do that at some point. So we suspect that over the next 2 months, there will be several meetings with this developer. There will probably be a public hearing on both sites with site plans where people can come and look and say, okay, what's exactly going to be on there? And then, we will work through it. While that's happening, work through actually purchasing Beach Acres. So those will happen simultaneously. And so again, I think in the next 3 or 4 months, we'll have a lot of questions answered. We will be under contract, or we will own Beach Acres, and then we figure out, do we run with the school idea? Do we run with a different idea? That'll probably be, first quarter of next year when we have to make that decision of which direction we go. Okay. Which is relatively quick, for three government entities to work through something like that.
Yeah, but a lot of legwork's been done kind of individually. I guess a lot of thought's been put into it.
There's definitely been a lot of thought, but now it's time to put it down on paper.
Yeah, that and coming together with some consensus on what's going to work best.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a great project. I mean, the potential's huge.
You said it, Dick. I mean, the potential is enormous. It is a game changer for Anderson Township. I mean, the idea that you can get a new school where we thought there was no chance to get a new school, the idea that the Park District could finally own their recreation center instead of leasing it and possibly even expand upon it, which expands their programming, and picking up additional parkland is huge. And then what happens at Beachmont and Forest, or what could happen there, is very exciting. I mean, we would have the chance to start from scratch on about 40 acres of land that we can plan, that we can say, okay, how do we make this an incredible mixed-use development? Similar to what's gone on in Oakley or Rookwood or some of the other areas where you're seeing this pop up.
Yeah, and I think that as you said, the potential of the old site even adds more to your economic development program, because we talked a little bit about last time when Andrew was on, we talked about a lot of there's a lot going on in this township. I mean, as far as economic development is concerned, I mean, gosh, Beachmont Avenue is just amazing. I mean, every time you drive up and down there, something new's opened up and is and functioning, and you say, where do these people come from? Where do they eat before? But because all of those places are full. I mean, when you go by, they're all full. So a lot of good things going on, and that whole corridor has really improved so much. And I know there's still a lot to come.
There is,
for that. But I mean, at least people have got to feel good just seeing all the things that are going on.
Absolutely. I mean, and Dick, timing is everything, really, when it comes to economic development. So when you are in a period of time like we are right now, where people are interested in the township, and when we go out and promote the township, people respond favorably, you have to capture that interest.
Absolutely.
Because we don't know how long this will last.
No.
And so you want to get the quality developments, you want to get the restaurants like Dewey's that you've always wanted to have in Anderson Township to come and commit
Right.
while it is, so hot out here, because activity breeds activity.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what's going on right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very promising, and it certainly is an incentive, I think, for people that are here to maybe make some improvements in their particular businesses.
Yeah.
And because you see all that activity going on. I saw in the Insights program that the plans are now in the process of, the comprehensive plan is kind of in the process of looking ahead to, I think, what was it, 2035. Now, is that something outside of the township trustees, or you're part of that development of that comprehensive plan?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've heard people say, is, planning. Where's the long-term plan, or and we are one community. I mean, one of the things I've been pleasantly surprised about is how much planning the staff, Vicki, Steve, Paul, Suzanne, all those guys over there, how much planning they actually do, and how much thought they put into, okay, what should we expect down the road? So right now, you mentioned it, we're working on our comprehensive plan. This is a all-encompassing plan of all the areas of Anderson and what we envision, or what we'd like to see, and how we'd like to see that play out. This plan was actually started about 10 years ago. It was initiated by the trustees. So, Russ Jackson was part of that board back there. So, it was part of his initiative to come up with this plan. So we definitely approve it. We are involved in it. We actually hire someone to do it because it is such an important part of our process and our development and the way that our zoning and planning and everything interact with each other. You have to have an expert do it. So it's one of those things where you spend the money because it's worth it, because you want someone to do it right, and you want someone to dedicate their full time and attention to making sure that it is done right. Now, fortunately, we already have one that's in place, so it doesn't require that we start from scratch. It's an update. And I think the last time it was updated was 2011. So it will be going through that process, which means it will be updated next year, 2016. And one of the things that we actually are going to look at that was never part of this plan before is what we call institutional properties. So the schools. We never really thought about the schools as being an economic development area.
Yeah.
And now, based on what's happening with this potential Anderson High School Beach Acres, that needs to be part of the plan. And not that we think that the other schools are going anywhere, but what if they do? I mean, what if they do merge? What if they do decide, to change the structure of how things are taught? Down the road, we at least will have a plan so that when developers or interest flows into the township, we can direct them to something concrete that says, here is what we envision. We've run it through public hearings. We've done our due diligence on it. Makes it easier for them to invest.
Right. Well, I think communities have found that and I think Anderson's a good example, that planning does really make a difference, because I think when a lot of communities got caught in where there wasn't much planning going on, and you had a kind of helter-skelter kind of projects and that, and with no connection, and they ended up with a lot of hodgepodge of stuff.
Right.
And then they try to figure out, okay, how do we fix that now, and once it's happened, it's kind of too late to try to go back and sort of, get it in some semblance of order. So I think what you're doing is really important, I think, for a community, is that you continue that process. Yeah. Because that way then you can plug things in. You can determine what fits, what doesn't fit, why doesn't it fit, what's going to take us to the next level.
Right.
So
it validates the development process, because what it does is it tells developers when they come in and say, hey, we'd like to redo this building, we can say, well, here's the comprehensive plan. This shows you the landscape plan, the streetscape plan, the signage plan. So all these new developments that you see, Krispy Kreme, Dewey's, the car dealerships, everything, if you'll notice, similar landscaping, similar curb cuts, similar signage, and now all of a sudden Beachmont, which we all know is not the most attractive avenue,
but
is starting to look better.
Yes, it is.
Because of that plan.
A whole lot better, yeah. And I think that's the difference. I think that way you've got some consistency and that, which I think does make the overall landscape look a lot better than what it does otherwise. Because you go into communities where that wasn't the case, and you've got all sorts of different kinds of looks, and there doesn't seem to be any anybody in charge to say what you can and what you can't do. So
right.
I think that makes a whole lot of difference. Anything else that's been going on? I saw where you've kind of the public service works in your public service funding and that. Still working on that.
Money's always going to be
a problem.
a question, an issue of, because expenses keep going up. We cut as much as we can. But it's always going to be an issue. So at some point, we are probably going to have to go out for a fire, an EMS, safety services levy. I think it's been 13 years or 14 years since we did the last one. I can't remember exactly, but it's been a while. We've stretched it, and maybe that specific levy has only been 7, but whatever it was, it's been stretched 2 years, and we're stretching it again next year. Using this TIF dollars that we are fortunate to be able to use. But at some point we are going to have to go out because those services, that is the priority, is safety services.
Absolutely.
We unfortunately, they used to be subsidized by the county and they just aren't anymore, and we got to pay for them.
Well, you do, and as you said, and you do have to plan ahead on that.
Yeah.
But you all have done pretty well, considering it's been a long time since you've had a levy. I think I think people understand that. I think they do understand that you can't. That keeps getting. The costs do go up. There's a point where you don't want to lose it.
Well, we've tried to be very transparent. Anyone can look at our records. Anyone can pull up our budget and see the history of what has gone on, specifically with the sheriff contract and fire. And you're right. It's inevitable.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't avoid it. If people have questions or want to know more information, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they should call Andrew Pappas. You want me to give you a cell phone number?
Sound like somebody else I know.
The nice thing about township government is we are very accessible. So you can go to our website, which is andersontownship.org, and we are actually going to revamp that, which is going to be very nice because it's been the same for a long time. But on that website is my information, the other trustees' information. You can email us, you can call us. We're pretty accessible people, which is nice because whether it's you're calling a neighbor. Have a concern about your neighborhood, or whether you're asking a question about what's going on with this building on Beachmont Avenue. If I don't know the answer, I can usually find it.
Well, but that's good though. I think and I think local government. I served in state government, but and local government too. But local government's really where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and that when people they can find you.
Yeah, they can definitely find
wherever. Enjoyed it. Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
You too.
Yeah, you're hopping in there, buddy. You're doing pretty good for being under the radar.
I got 2 very good partners actually, and the whole staff over there is really makes this a good job.
You really do. You've got good people. That makes a difference too.
Yeah, it does.
Well, we appreciate you being here. We look forward to seeing you again. Hope you have good holidays.
You too.
Enjoy them. And we hope you will enjoy your holidays as they come along here. But we thank you for joining us today for this edition of Trustee Talk. And on behalf of all of us, we do hope that you have a very happy, blessed Thanksgiving, and that you won't forget to join us for the next Trustee Talk right here on ACTV.